Hi students. When you're selecting a research topic, sometimes it can be difficult to narrow down to a topic that is manageable during a semester. So I want to give you an example of how I might go about narrowing down a research topic. So I may begin by doing some general research into studies that talk about reading in school, and suppose that's where I'm really interested. I'm a second grade teacher and I am super interested in how to help kids read better because I see a lot of students that are struggling to read. As I'm doing this research, I notice that there's quite a lot of information about reading in school. So I need to start narrowing down my topic. As my interest is in early grades, I do want to focus on early grade reading development, which is different than reading development in later grades. Specifically, though, I may focus on second grade students because that's my main interest. And it's a specific developmental stage where students are learning specific reading skills. As I'm continuing my literature search, I may find that reading is too large of a topic, and I actually kind of want to narrow down to specific reading interventions that teachers use. And these specific reading interventions, one particular one that caught my mind as I was going through this, my literature review, is ability grouping. Ability grouping is one of those interventions or we could say just a practice that we use all the time in reading, but I wonder, is it really effective? And in fact, as I'm doing my literature search, I'm noticing that there is some ambiguity about whether or not it's effective or not. However, as I'm also looking, I have to kind of go back a little bit and realize that I need to focus more on a particular outcome, because ability grouping seems to be effective for some things, but maybe not everything. And let's say I'm going to now focus particularly on reading comprehension. In my search, I'm also noticing that there is a gap on ability grouping for struggling readers. And not all of the literature really gives me a clear picture about how this ability grouping helps struggling readers. So you notice I've gone from a very general topic, reading in school, to a very specific topic about a specific population and some specific outcomes that I can now write a good literature review or research proposal about. If I'm going to be doing a method section, this is also really going to help me because I can now formulate what type of method I'm going to be using, whether or not it's qualitative, quantitative, or mixed methods. And it will also help me generate a clear and specific research question. For example, I could ask, what is the effect of ability grouping on student reading comprehension in second grade struggling readers? This gives me a great question to begin with. This question is clear and also allows me to, I guess I should say it this way, the clarity of the question allows us to create a clear literature review and a clear method section. This is important because of what I like to call the hourglass model of research. I guess I don't call it this way. Other researchers, Fetters and Freshwater, came up with this term, and I like it. If we think about research, it starts very broad. Think about the top of the hourglass is very, very broad, the broad context of reading in schools. Then it narrows down to specific contexts, such as ability grouping and reading comprehension. Then the method section is really specific to this particular study that I'm doing right now that is going to fill a particular gap, which then leads on to the findings, and then I use the findings to broaden back out to the general population, the general idea, what I found and what it might mean for everybody. Now, if I am doing a literature review, I'm just going to be focusing on the top bit, right? That yellow, broad to narrow. That's what you're going to be focusing on. But I do think that this hourglass model can help us understand what we're trying to do. If we're too broad, it's not going to be very useful. The paper that we're writing is just not going to be very useful. So to begin your research, I want to make sure that you review the embedded librarian resources that are available to you on Canvas. I also want to make sure that you do select a topic of interest pretty quickly. It may be general right now, but start trying to narrow it down as you do your literature search. You also do need to begin a literature search this early in the semester so that you have time to narrow down your topic as you continue on. And then once it's narrowed, you have enough time to gather the literature and write it up.